Just giving you a little preview of a little football game that's scheduled to kick off 48 minutes and 16 seconds from this very moment. Someplace in the American Southwest, I think. Arizona? Yeah, Arizona, yeah. Between a couple of football teams you might have heard of, especially lately. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, you can expect a steady diet of the beast that shakes the earth, and the prowess of the quarterback that was born for this stage. Must be why he's on it again. But, that'll take place on Sunday. But I wanted to get that in there because this, as far as hard starboard radio is concerned, this will be my last chance to do so. And I have dutifully, I haven't brought it up much. Actually, last time I directly did was the day after the NFC Championship game. As far as audio clips are concerned. So, I keep my word. I said I'm not going to turn this into a Seahawk shrine for 2 weeks. No, it's cool. It's cool. This is the Hard Starboard Radio Network at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network. I'm your host, Jasmius, your ruler, your benevolent despot, and your fountain rabbi of conservatism, constitutionalism, Christianity, and common sense, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Guest call-in number 646-478-5068. It's the same guest call-in number it's been for 3/4 of a decade now, folks. Believe it or not. Email address, jasmius@comcast.net. That's never changed either. And chat room is open, so come on in and take a load off, and make sure you get your Seahawk jerseys and your 12th man flags, and 12th. Someone actually took a 12th man flag up to the International Space Station. There's a shot of it. I posted it at politicalpistachio.com. I got it somewhere, I know, in my archives. But a picture of an astronaut holding a 12th man flag in orbit. That was the coolest thing. One of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life, man. Now, you think cranking it up all the way to 12 looks awesome when they raise the. By the way, it as per usual, every day during football season for home games and of course the Super Bowl, somebody raised a 12th man flag on the Space Needle in Seattle. You think that's raising it high? Try in Earth orbit. I mean, that was just the most awesome thing that I'd ever seen. Who knows? There are probably 12th man flags on other planets by this time. Good stuff gets around, folks. That's the bottom line. Yeah, that's why I say that. Speaking of good stuff getting around, that the Saturday afternoon extravaganza, which, by the way, the next edition of it begins in 20 hours and 48 minutes over at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific tomorrow, Saturdays, and of course tomorrow's the next one. That is the 3-hour program on 2 venues that kicks off, again, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. That I refer to as the local show with the global footprint, or at least the flagship part of it, the 3rd hour, which is, of course, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs at kcaaradio.com, globally, KCAA AM 1050, FM 106.3 locally in the Southern California Inland Empire area, San Bernardino and Loma Linda, California, to be specific. I refer to it as the local show with the global footprint, and that's That's good stuff, folks. Give it a listen if you haven't already. I don't know you have, but just in case, we are always getting new audience members streaming in all the time. But I refer to it as the local show with the global footprint, that we're going to make the national show, the global show with the galactic footprint, because it's good stuff. I mean, you want to know why 12th man flags are all over this part of the galaxy? Same reason why the most listened to radio program in this part of the galaxy is going to be the Saturday after, what we currently refer to as the Saturday afternoon extravaganza, and more specifically, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. And who knows how much the name will change once we go national, folks. I don't know. I mean, the forerunner of Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs was, of course, the political pistachio radio revolution. That's what it was called originally when it was on Blog Talk Radio. And then my friend Douglas V. Gibbs made the leap to over-the-air broadcast or terrestrial radio as a local host, And it became originally it was Constitution Speaker Radio. And if he had asked me, what do you think I should call it, I would have said Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. And of course, Doug and I think so much alike that that's what it became. Because it's you gotta market yourself as well as the program, and market the participants. And of course, myself, Jasmius, and of course Alex Ferguson, the Gabby Hayes of the Saturday Afternoon Extravaganza, have gained some renown. Once we go national, well, who knows? Will it be Constitution Radio, or Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, or the Douglas V. Gibbs Show, or Doug and Jasmius, or Doug and Jim, or I suppose that the latter two suggestions might give it more of a sports radio motif, like on 710 ESPN Seattle. In the morning, it's Brock and Sock, and then in the afternoon, it's Bob and Graz, and then in the afternoon drive, it's Danny, Dave, and Moore. So that's kind of. But then they're all more or less. They're like manning shifts on a sports radio station, so there really isn't any need to distinguish it beyond those who are actually hosting each shift. I don't know what we'll call it. We'll come up with something, but we'll market it as the global show with the galactic footprint. So I'm real big on that. See, that's the thing about when you come up with something like a slogan like that, or a pitch line, is that you can adjust it as the program grows. Go from the local show with the global footprint to the global show with the galactic footprint. Or maybe no, we have to do it that way because, if it's a local show and it already has a global footprint, then once we go national, don't we have to move up one notch the other half of that pitch line? I mean, it seems that way to me. So, hey, I took a marketing course as part of my business curriculum in college, so that's what I think. And of course, I'm the one with the college education of the two of us. Although I'll tell you what, Mr. Gibbs, he doesn't actually have a formal college education, but he knows more about he is that just goes to show you. That just goes to show you. I mean, when I go through what's posted at Liberty Tree Media Group.com, while working several jobs over the past decade, Doug Gibbs pursued a calling, learning the Constitution of the United States. He researched, dissected, and illuminated or obtained illumination from each and every word in that historic document. He's self-taught, folks. He's self-taught, and in fact, he learned more about the Constitution than he ever would have if he'd gone to law school. I'll tell you that much right now. Because they don't teach the Constitution in law schools. They teach case law. They teach what judges say about the Constitution, not what the Founding Fathers did, not what the people who actually wrote the United States Constitution thought and said and wrote. That's why he's turned down as a guest on legal shows, because he knows more about the Constitution than they do, because they've never learned the Constitution. That's why 2 different attorneys have joined his Constitution classes and have told him, I learned more about what the Constitution actually says in your class than I did in 4 years of law school. Amazing how that works, isn't it? Yes, indeed. But like I say, 3 hours from 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, clear through to the end of the program at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, a time of day with which all of you should already be intimately familiar. In hour number 1, Mr. Gibbs joins me, and we discuss, analyze, and break down the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week. Brought to you, of course, by All-Star Collision, located in Corona, California, 522 Railroad Street, specifically. The web address, allstarcl.com. The address, the phone number locally, 951-279-9161. That's, again, 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, they are the kings of rock and roll. And it's deemed safe. S-A-E-F. I think the other day I pronounced it Said or something like that. No, deemed safe. S-A-E-F. Runs and owns All-Star Collision. If you're in the Southern California Inland Empire area and you want your car tricked out, detailed, or just need a dent pounded out of something, out of a fender or whatever, again, 522 Railroad Street in Corona, California, 951-279-9161, or the website at allstarcl.com. Hopefully, God willing, we won't have 22 stories this week. As I said last Saturday, 22 stories is a description of how tall a building is. It's not the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week. We got to have a ceiling. We got to have a governor on that. Just hold it to 15. No more than 15. Because, with 22 stories, if you eliminate all commercials, you only, and went all 3 hours doing nothing but the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week, that's about 8 minutes a story. So, and of course we don't have, you can't eliminate commercials, and we don't have the whole time just for the big stories of the week, because of course there's a top-tier guest, whether national, regional, or local. There's the regulars, Mr. Gibbs, myself, Alex Ferguson, aforementioned, of ConservativeCandidate.com, and Engineer Joe, a very good Joe indeed. And there's the book of the week. There's the Constitution Quest question of the week. Oh, yes, Constitution Quest, the board game. And it's home, its original home, ConstitutionQuest.com. Constitution Quest question of the week comes from a piece from that very game. And if you make your purchase of Constitution Quest, the board game, at ConstitutionQuest.com, put the discount code Doug in the discount field when you make your purchase. You get 10% off your purchase. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Why would you even bother? All right. Why would you even think? Why would you even contemplate not getting your copy of Constitution Quest, the board game? Or for that matter, your copy of Mr. Gibbs' 3 books, all available at CreateSpace.com or Amazon.com. 25 Myths of the United States Constitution by Douglas V. Gibbs, The Basic Constitution by Douglas V. Gibbs, and Silenced Screams, the abortion tome that is his latest book, his latest product that he's churned out of his frenetic, fractal, and fertile brain. And I have the honor of being his book editor, so, I got a little, I'm kind of like the proud uncle. I was going to say father, no, that's that too direct, but the proud uncle watching from off stage, but I had somewhat of a hand in it too, so I'm not, don't put my name on any of these books. I didn't write them, I edited them. That's a totally different thing. It doesn't entitle you to name your name on anything. Although in the foreword to 25 Minutes of the United States Constitution, I am mentioned, so I do appreciate that. Mentioned by my real name, though. So, of course, my handle, Jasmius, derives from my real name. I'll leave it to you to go back through the podcast archives at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network, because there is an edition of Hard Starboard Radio where I mentioned what my real name is and where my nom de guerre, my blogcasting and blogging handle Jasmius originated. And see, if you do that, then by the time you're done, you'll have downloaded all 1,500 podcasts plus at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network, blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review, and of course, the podcast page at kcaaradio.com, the Constitution Speaker podcast page. If you want to go there most directly, go to douglasvgibbs.com, click on the radio link, and there's the link that will take you right to the Constitution Radio podcast page. 5.5, let's see, 7.5, 5.5 is 13, and so there are 16.5 years combined at those three outlets of podcasting or broadcasting brilliance, ladies and gentlemen. Brilliance, wit, wisdom, a lot of fun, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of passion for the cause of constitutionalism. So go there, go to all three. Be with us tomorrow, 20 hours and 34 minutes from now. You will not want to miss it. Now, let me ask you a question. Would you like some cornpone politics? Told you yesterday I'd lead off with this one, and sure enough, I am once again a man of my word, and God, is this fun. I don't know what it is about Mike Huckabee, Mike Huckabuckle, Mike Arbuckle, Mike Huckleberry Hound. I've got half a dozen different variations on that, all of them deserved, well deserved. I mean, when Mike Huckabee ran for president in 2008, and he earned the nickname the John Edwards of the Republican Party. It was very, very well earned. I mean, Mike Huckabee, it's funny because I was looking at a news wire story earlier today, and Reuters, Thomson Reuters, were grouping the prospective GOP presidential field. They put Scott Walker in the establishment side and Mike Huckabee on the conservative side. Yeah, that's, I mean, you talk about getting it, what's that expression, bass backwards? That's what that was. Mike Huckabee is not a conservative, folks. He's a SOCON, a social conservative, and a single issue candidate. And you know, I mean, that's fine if you want to, you know, if you want to push that issue, if that's your issue, and you know, to the exclusion of all others, fine. But then don't run for president, or don't, you know, think yourself presidential timber. Now, parenthetically, given the fact that that's horning in on Rick Santorum's territory, I think that social conservatives out there can forget about ever. I mean, not that they did have a chance for this, but they can forget about either of their champions, Rick Santorum or Mike Huckabee, ever having a chance at the GOP nomination. But then single-issue candidates don't typically win the nomination, because you have to appeal to more than just those in your particular existential bubble. This is what Tea Partiers don't seem to understand. You know, you need to have a candidate who can appeal outside his or her particular constituency. You got to appeal. If you're going to run for the nomination of the Republican Party, you have to appeal to more than just conservatives. You have to appeal to rhinos. You have to appeal to moderates, or at the very least, be able to get them to not oppose you once you clinch the nomination. You know. And of course, the GOP nominating process is one of the strongholds of the establishment, which is why we've only had two. I hesitate to use this term because I really hate this term, but in this case, it fits. In the last almost century, the GOP has only had really two true conservative candidates. I pointed this out before. Barry Goldwater in 1964, Ronald Reagan in 1980. That's it. You go through all the others and, well, establishment, rhino, establishment, Rockefeller, etc., right on down the line. And of course, the 21st century version of that term, compassionate conservative. It just ought to have been an insult to all conservatives, because it implies that, well, most conservatives aren't compassionate, which is, of course, not the case, not remotely the case, but we define compassion differently. There's nothing compassionate about the government. But, you know, so, I mean, Mike Huckabee is not a conservative. Mike Huckabee is the, well, as he was referred to in 2008, the John Edwards of the Republican Party. He's for higher taxes. He's for bigger government, or at least not as big as Barack Obama's expanded it. But I mean, he's not a. You know, I mean, if he were for that, he'd be a Democrat, not a Republican. But you know, he's not he's not a constitutionalist. He's not a conservative, other than on social/moral issues. And if those were the only issues, well then, you know, I might take him a bit more seriously. And Charles Cook at NRO definitely doesn't take him seriously. In fact, Mike Huckabee and his cornpone politics drives Charles Cook crazy. It just makes me laugh as opposed to driving me crazy. But then that's, I suppose, because I don't take Mike Huckabee seriously and as a candidate, and he didn't come close in 2008. Why would he come close this time? And in any case, that's one reason among many why it'll never work. It's aesthetically irritating and electorally counterproductive. Now, among the panoply of rightward-leaning politicians who are currently flirting with running for the presidency is one Mike Huckabee, a former pastor, governor, TV host, and author, who has of late been preparing for office by converting himself into Larry the Cable Guy. Get her done. Yeah, parenthetically, of the four blue-collar comedy guys, my favorite is Ron White, not Larry. Ron White and Bill Engvall. Well, they're kind of like 1A and 1B. Jeff Foxworthy, don't like him quite as much. I don't dislike him, but I don't like him quite as much. And Larry the Cable Guy is a distant fourth. Larry the Cable Guy is 8th grade humor. You know, boogers and farts and that kind of thing, which, you know, I mean, he gets off a good one every once in a while. That's, I mean, a good line. Don't misinterpret that. But I like Ron White's storytelling, and frankly, I can identify with Bill Engvall. Bill Engvall, of all four of them, Bill Engvall is the closest to me, personality-wise, and just how life was unfolded. You know, at least up until now. In that case, in that sense, I'm kind of the opposite of Bill Engvall, because he paid his dues and then hit it big. And I had a career, and now I got nothing. I mean, at least until Constitution Education Enterprises, LLC, takes off, if you follow my meaning. So that's the Larry the Cable Guy reference, or at least my familiarity with the guy. Although, you know, in terms of movies and crossover appeal, hey, Larry the Cable Guy is, well, okay. No, actually, I'll stick with that. Larry the Cable Guy's been in movies, done the voice of Tow Mater in Cars and the sequel. So I mean, he's crossed over the most of any of the blue collar comedy guys. But I digress. I suppose you could say, well, Mike Huckabee's crossed over the most of all. He was blue collar before there was blue. Or no, was he? No, he was. Not on the presidential level, I guess, but because blue collar was 2000, 2003, 2006, the three blue collar comedy movies. So that predated Mike Huckabee's presidential ambitions, I suppose. But anyway, getting distracted by get her done. Lord, I apologize. Be there with the pygmies in New Guinea. Amen. There we go. Huckabee is touring the breadth and width of the country in support of his new book, the alliteratively titled, and I swear I'm not making this up, folks, God, Guns, Grits, and Gravy. Which reminds me of my Mike Huckabee update theme from back in 2008. Biscuits and gravy! Make me a man! Oh, biscuits and gravy! I eat all that I can, which is why Mike Huckabee used to weigh 400 pounds. That's what he called his book, folks. God, Guns, Grits, and Gravy. Purpose of which seems to be to establish its author as the unparalleled down-home candidate within the 2016 primary. Unlike so many in Washington, Huckabee claims, he is firmly on the side of Bubbaville rather than Bubbleville. It's mildly clever, although Bubbleville may be a little bit too obscure of a reference. Of course, he's referring to economic bubbles, financial bubbles, and so forth. Of the catfish and cornbread crowd, by the way, for the record, I've seen fried catfish, and apparently it's not too different from cod or halibut, so I could go with that part of it. Not cornbread. I hate cornbread. Don't like cornbread at all. I don't really care for grits much either. You know, in fact, recently, the last time intern Missius was home, my wife made black-eyed peas. Well, you know what black-eyed peas are? Beans. I had no idea. I thought that well, black-eyed peas, okay, they're peas that have little black specks or something. No, they're beans, but I don't know why they're called black-eyed peas, but that's what they're called. Who knew? Yeah, they're similar to grits. That's what reminded me of them. The catfish and cornbread crowd, rather than the crepes and caviar set, and I don't really care for crepes or caviar either, so I guess that makes me a moderate. No, that makes me an independent, at least in this context. And of those who come home tired at the end of the day, rather than those who burn tires in the street. Is that a Lady Di reference? Parenthetically, I just thought of that. I just realized, Lady Di? Sorry. It's Friday. Are you tired of the incumbent set? He seems to ask. Then you know what to do. Or maybe I should say, are you tired of the incumbent set? Then you know what to do. No. Then y'all know what to do. That's better. Get her done. By taking this approach, Huckabee is essentially attempting to become to the right what the likes of Neil deGrasse Tyson have become to the left. Namely, a proxy figure who can be used as shorthand by the lazy and the lost to signify their allegiance to a set of cherished cultural values. We like the simple life, Huckabee announces in his book. Status is a Ford 150 pickup. Luxuries, crawfish etouffee, and slaw on your pulled pork sandwich. Actually, slaw on barbecue is pretty good. I'll give you that one. And privilege is front row seats at a Leonard Skinner concert. Never in a million years, my friends. Give me the Rippingtons any day. All right? Or Casting Crowns, for that matter. But Leonard Skinner, And unlike those misfortunate souls in Manhattan, the Washington Beltway, or in Beverly Hills, we know the joy that one can get from wading in chest-deep water to hunt mallards. No, I have utterly no desire. Well, I'll tell you what, if I'm going to be in chest-deep water, it isn't going to be to hunt ducks. Let's just leave it at that. Now, insofar as it goes, there is nothing wrong with any of this. Indeed. Well, I told you how many of those things I did and did not like. Parenthetically, my dad doesn't have a Ford 150 pickup, but he does have a Ford pickup. It's a small one. I suppose someday I'll inherit it. Let's see here. But the self-conscious spinning of local tradition into a national political aesthetic is invariably irritating and typically electorally counterproductive. There are many wonderful things about the world Huckabee is attempting to represent, but surely, just surely, it is possible for a Southerner to run for high office without dressing up as Forrest Gump. Isn't it? Well, of course it is, but he doesn't seem to think so. There is a golden place in American life for preachers, authors, rabble-rousers, and loudmouths. And yet, because entertainer and statesman are discrete concepts, that place is rarely the White House. Unfortunately, today's Republican Party often seems incapable of grasping the difference between the two roles. which I would venture is why so many conservatives demand talk radio purity from their representatives and political blueprints from their talk radio hosts. It is also, I suspect, why their attacks on Barack Obama's celebrity tend to fall painfully short. There is nothing inherently wrong with conservatives rolling their eyes at those voters who selected Barack Obama over Mitt Romney because they thought that Obama cared more about them, or because he was more like them, or because he received the endorsement of famous people that they admire, or in other words, because they thought he was cool. But it's difficult to take the detractors seriously when their own would-be representatives believe that they can achieve prominence simply by crowbarring the words guns and God into a book title and then running around the country explaining why or which of the many people in Manhattan they think are a little la-di-da. Now, none of this is to suggest that someone from a rural state should not be the Republican nominee. Like, say, I don't know, is Wisconsin considered a rural state? Madison, Wisconsin. Nice, that's Paul Dunton, still the mayor. Da-da-da-da-da. My Tannenbaum's expanding. Nor, for that matter, is it to imply that there is anything inherently wrong with a public figure's acknowledging his roots. In fact, it would be rather refreshing to welcome into the fold a presidential candidate who did not resemble Clint Webb. But it is to note that there is an awkwardly thin line between the man who is genuinely proud of where he is from and who doesn't care who knows it, and the hectoring tell, don't, shows, scold who is elected or has elected to sneer at the rest of the country because he thinks it would help his electoral fortunes. Lately, alas, Huckles has begun to position himself on the wrong side of that divide. In Iowa, he told a Des Moines radio station last Friday, you would not have people who would just throw the F-bomb and use gratuitous profanity in a professional setting. In New York, by contrast, not only do the men do it, but the women do it too. That, he concluded, is just trashy. This was no aberration. And then, by the way, I'm not defending using the F word, so don't get that. In fact, Quinn Hilliard today at NRO posted a rebuttal of sorts to Mr. Cook's piece from yesterday, saying, no, actually, Huckabee is right. We do use the F word too much in our public discourse. Well, I don't disagree with Quinn on that. But, you know, that's really not the point. This was no aberration. A few days earlier, Huckabee had taken to Bill O'Reilly's show to describe Beyoncé as nothing more than a sex object, and to imply that by permitting her to dance as she sees fit, her husband is a pimp. You see why I get such a kick out of this? In his book, meanwhile, he describes Beyoncé's music as trash, proposes that her explicit moves are best left for the privacy of her bedroom, and inquires derisively as to why the Obamas let Sasha and Malia listen to her at all. That's called being a hardcore square, I guess. You know, it's kind of like that open with the cranking it up to 12 segment before the Super Bowl last year. I played it at the top of the show with, showing the Legion of Boom and Russell Wilson and then Seahawks receiver Golden Tate and Doug Baldwin and Huckabee is loud and proud of being a square, of being Gomer Pyle in essence, Gomer Huck. See, one has to ask why exactly politicians feel the need to comment on these questions. The United States has a raft of problems that need addressing, not the least of which is that its supposedly limited government, it hasn't been that way in, century at least, is at present threatening to devour it already has devoured the very liberty that it was instituted to protect. That a man who would ascend to the most powerful office in the country is meditating on the alleged shortcomings of a performer strikes me as being both politically unseemly and electorally counterproductive. There's that phrase again, folks. Here on the right, we often complain that the political, media, and entertainment classes regard most of the country as rather irrelevant, and that in consequence they openly condescend to people who live in Alabama or who go to church or who have NRA stickers on their cars. There is much to this gripe, and yet one who will not solve that problem by presenting as a countervailing force a person who sneers right back, especially when that person is seeking an extraordinary amount of power over his fellow citizens. Whatever cultural renaissance Mike Huckabee might believe is necessary in the United States, it will be up to civil society and not to the political classes to bring it about. Unless conservatives wish to join the left in its Wilsonian quest to glue politics to absolutely everything, our would-be emissaries really need to make up their minds. Do they want to be Mark Levin or do they want to be Calvin Coolidge? Wow, I seem to remember somebody at politicalpistachio.com referring to a certain Wisconsin governor as the 21st century Calvin Coolidge very, very recently, just this week as a matter of fact. Now this principle, I would venture, must obtain even more keenly when that emissary is being dull. One of the many reasons that that Mr. Cook, and I suppose applies to me too, am not an Obamunist, is that Obamunists tend to be inordinately boring and zealously puritanical. And once they are afforded the chance to exploit their insipidity, or export their insipidity, unyieldingly evangelical to boot. Increasingly, there is almost nothing in our culture that is not offensive or problematic in one way or another. Jokes aren't funny because they inevitably have a butt. Music isn't enjoyable because it's too misogynistic or appropriated. History cannot be taught lest it trigger those with excessively sensitive souls. The open road is reactionary because it's bad for the environment. Smoking and drinking should be limited because they are bad for you. Well, unless it's dope or, pot, in which case, toke away. By the way, it puts 4 times as much tar in your lungs as cigarettes do. I thought I'd throw that in there. What else here? They should be limited because they're bad for you and for the healthcare system. Guns and knives are too dangerous for adults to handle. All told, it seems to me that the right will not be able to fight this if it is merely hoping to replace one set of taboos with another, and to install at the top of the pyramid a preacher turned politico whose first campaign move was to turn himself into a caricature. By the way, parenthetically, if Mike Huckabee got the nomination, do you think that maybe, just maybe, the left would have greater grounds for shrieking theocracy? Come on, man. A former pastor running for president? Oh my gosh, Nehemiah Scudder is real! That's a Robert Heinlein reference. You can look it up. Perusing the last century's election returns, one is hard-pressed to find a winning campaign that has been built upon a contrived appeal to regional or cultural mores. For all the hick vitriol that was thrown at George W. Bush, his early popularity was in large part the product of a mixed upbringing and accomplished professional background that permitted him to put his finger into a good number of cultural pies at the same time. This same trick was pulled by both Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton, and arguably by Jimmy Carter and Richard Nixon as well. Even in times of strife, Americans seemed to be interested in neither recherche, R-E-C-H-E-R-C-H-E, I'll admit I'm not sure what that means, cultural proxies, or candidates who play up their particular cultural meme. Despite the brief class warfare that the first Great Depression provoked, what do you mean brief? The country chose to trust a politician who had risen to prominence in part because he enjoyed a famous name. The apotheoses, yeah, okay, of the anti-elitist progressive era, meanwhile, were presided over by a man who had been the president of Princeton, that would be Woodrow Wilson, and before him, a man whose last name was synonymous with the Gilded Age that he promised to bring to a close. Teddy Roosevelt, perhaps? In the post-World War II era, a time of burgeoning middle-class prosperity, of leveling neighborliness, and of the folksy television charms of Davy Crockett and Leave It to Beaver, the country was twice asked to choose between a five-star general and a bookish intellectual diplomat. Do we honestly believe that Adlai Stevenson would have done better if he'd run on a promise of butter, milkshakes, drive-ins, and cars? Well, he didn't do well anyway, so I'm really not sure what difference it makes, but I know that Huck is never, ever going to get there. Well, it came out today. Mitt Romney is not running for president. Happy days are here again. I don't know. I never really thought that he was running in the first place. Yeah, there was that little boomlet where he was. I think it was because people kept telling him, Mitt, you gotta run. Mitt, run, Mitt, run. Run, Mitt, run. Run, Mitt, run. And apparently, for a little while there, that was drowning out the rest of the country who were saying, "Oh my God, no! Oh my God, no! Not again! Not again!" Right, Mitt Romney spent the past 2+ years saying, "I'm not running for president again. I'm done. I've had my crack, a couple cracks at the apple. I don't want to do it. I don't want to put my family through it again. I'm not doing it." And then, people kept, or at least some people kept getting in his ear. So he started thinking about it, but no. He confirmed it today. He's not running. It's a boomlet that ginned up some hope, in my mind anyway, that maybe, just maybe, he would clog the establishment field for a change, as opposed to the conservative side, and open a straight shot to daylight for a certain conservative consensus candidate. Skywalker, excuse me. Alas, it is not to be. After a 3-week flirtation with a new campaign for the White House, Mitt Romney announced Friday, today, that he will not seek the presidency in 2016 after all. After putting considerable thought into making another run for president, I've decided it is best to give other leaders in the party the opportunity to become our next nominee, Romney told supporters on a conference call. Romney's exit, after several of his former major donors and a veteran staffer in the early voting state of Iowa defected to support former Florida Governor Jeb Bush. Bush and New Jersey Governor Chris Christie would have served as Romney's most likely rivals for the support of the Republican Party's establishment-minded voters. Although that's not to say that Mitt didn't dispense some surprisingly sage and decidedly non-establishmentarian advice. However, I believe that one of our next generation of Republican leaders, one who may not be as well known as I am today, one who has not yet taken their message across the country, one who is just getting started, Skywalker, excuse me, may well emerge as being better able to defeat the Democrat nominee, Romney said. In fact, I expect and hope that to be the case. No, Mitt wasn't endorsing Governor Walker, at least not yet, although remember from where his 2012 running mate hails. Madison, Wisconsin. Still the mayor. Oh, my Tannenbaum's expanding. But it seems he's sending a pretty clear message to Jeb Bush to follow his get the tired blood the hell out of the way example, or stop looking to the past, as Governor Walker himself put it in his first campaign ad, and that the GOP and the USA need a third Bush even less than a third Romney presidential run. I mean, not that Jeb was listening, of course. I mean, just look at his thinly veiled elation at Governor Romney's bowing out announcement. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, who was expected to make a bid, was one of the first to issue a reaction. He described Romney as a patriot on his Facebook page. Mitt Romney has been a leader in our party for many years. There are few people who have worked harder to elect Republicans across the country than he has. Though I'm sure today's decision was not easy, I know that Mitt Romney will never stop advocating for renewing America's promise through upward mobility, encouraging free enterprise, and strengthening our national defense. Mitt is a patriot, and I join many in hoping his days of serving our nation and our party are not over. I look forward to working with him to ensure all Americans have a chance to rise up. Translation? Booyah! Now all I have to worry about is that fat slob in Jersey, and once he has his coronary, I can just sit back and watch all those idiot Tea Partiers tear each other limb from limb. The GOP nomination is as good as mine! Speaking of that fat slob from Jersey, he hasn't had a coronary, or at least not yet, and may he never suffer such a nasty fate, ladies and gentlemen. But Governor Chris Christie did recently guarantee that he will be forever remembered as the 21st century Gerald Ford. That was not the best audio, but that was from a video that's gone viral where Chris Christie was invited to talk sports on a sports radio station. And he came in and he was going to sit down. He missed the chair and fell on his ample backside. Now, I don't care what Chris Christie ever hereafter does. I don't care what Chris Christie ever hereafter says. He will never be taken seriously in this country again after this video. Even losing 200 pounds may not be enough to overcome it. Heck, Gerald Ford wasn't fat, and he was already in the White House, but after Chevy Chase and Saturday Night Live got through with him, he was a national laughingstock, and down he went in 1976. All right, gaffing that Poland wasn't part of the Warsaw Pact and pardoning his predecessor may have had something to do with it as well, but stumbling down the steps of Air Force One didn't help. So if you don't want Bush 3, my Tea Party friends, get on the Scott Walker bandwagon. And in the meantime, try to make pictures like the one I posted at politicalpistachio.com at the bottom of this particular post. Go viral as well. And you can contribute your own caption in the comments. Mine was, if you think going number 2 was good, wait till you go number 3. I like that a lot, actually. Last hour of the week, ladies and gentlemen, 19 hours and 51 minutes until the kickoff of the Saturday afternoon extravaganza at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. And, of course, 47 hours and... 47 hours and 16 minutes until, of course, the kickoff of Super Bowl 49. I guess I call that 1A and 1B, ladies and gentlemen. So, one thing we know for certain, there's going to be plenty to do this weekend. It is an epic weekend, and there's also Super Bowl 49. So, enjoy it, embrace it, learn it, live it, love it. And then, of course, on Monday, we'll have the Super Bowl 49 Victory Show here on the Hard Starboard Radio Network. And then next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I will be off. So the podcast will return live a week from today for another Open Thighs Friday. And in case you were wondering, yes, that does mean that there won't be a Jasmius cam footage upload for next week. I should hasten to. I don't think I mentioned that in the table setting part of the program in hour number 1. Thank you for watching, listening, and subscribing to. And for those of you who haven't done any or all of those things, shame on you. Start doing them immediately. Hey, I am your benevolent despot, but I am still a despot, remember. To our YouTube channels, youtube.com/user/hardstarboardradio. The destination of each full week's Jasmius cam footage from the most listened to podcast of said week. And, of course, youtube.com/user/American Daily Review 2, the home of each Saturday afternoon extravaganza, all 3 hours, all smushed together because it is really one show. It's just right now, due to financial limitations, it's on 2 venues, but it's going to be on 1, and it's going to be the global show with the galactic footprint when the time we're done with it, and hopefully that break will be coming soon. We shall see. Now, one other holdover. I mentioned Scott Walker a lot in the first hour, and in an expectorative sort of way, you know, Scott Walker. Excuse me. He's got his first campaign out, folks. I mean, he's not necessarily calling it that, but that's really what it is. And if there's one thing you know about us here at Constitution Education Enterprises, LLC, and its many outlets, politicalpistachio.com, Constitution Radio, American Daily Review, and right here on the Hard Starboard Radio Network, dear audience members, it is that we do not pull punches on anybody. We call them as we see them. And if members of our own team screw up, we'll light their boots on fire as well. You know that very well. And if you think I'm not doing it enough, hey, Doug does it too much. So we balance each other out in that sense. But we are also candid about the fact that we are advocacy journalists. We have a point of view, constitutional conservatism, and all our hard-hitting but witty and whimsical analysis flows through that ideological lens. And we make no bones about the candidates we support in intramural scrums like Republican presidential nominating cycles. Now, In 2012, Doug and I weren't necessarily on the same page. He liked Rick Santorum. I thought Rick Santorum was a joke and a disaster in the making. Although he really needn't have worried much about it. Because, I mean, I wasn't a huge Mitt Romney fan, but he was the lesser of the three primary evils, which was Romney, Rick Santorum, the former Pennsylvania senator, and former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. Of the three, I didn't really like any of them particularly that much, but Mitt Romney had the best resume and the most money. So he was the lesser of three evils. This time around, Mr. Gibbs and myself, are on the absolutely exact same page, ladies and gentlemen. So while we will cover the 2016 GOP primaries and whack the 21st century Calvin Coolidge if and when necessary, you can consider this our endorsement of two-term, thrice-elected Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker for President of the United States in 2016. And count on the fact that we will post every campaign ad and video that Walker 16 churns out, and I will play it here on the same hard starboard radio network stations. A Reagan-esque breath of fresh air in an atmosphere that's been choking on foul Obamanist fumes for what seems like a lifetime, isn't it? But I will make one critique, though. The first one, I told you, yeah, 21st century Calvin Coolidge needs to be whacked. I'll be perfectly happy to do the whacking. Here's the first whack. You know the part of the ad where he said, "Don't look to the past for America's solutions," and it showed a big old picture of Hillary Clinton. Well, Governor, don't reference Hillary Clinton. You're just helping the Democrats set the stage for their actual 2016 nominee, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat, Massachusetts. She certainly wouldn't fit under the label "looking to the past." Remember, the vast majority of people in this country aren't political junkies and ideologues like we are. And they'll always give a fresh face the benefit of the doubt. You know, libs and nibs, low information voters. The ones who voted for re-elected Barack Obama because they thought he was cool. Even though Pocahontas pushes the same tired Marxist Stalinskiist bilge we've had shoved down in our ear holes and down our throats for most of the past decade. Do not, in short, Governor, preemptively start running the general campaign against a woman that is not even going to get there. Listen to me and I'll bring you home. Walk. You may have noticed, I'm sure it must have been in the news sometime in the last almost 3 months, but Barack Obama slammed the door on Congress. He slammed it in their face. He's slammed their sensitive parts in the door. It's... nobody. I mean, of course, this is not a surprise to us because we know Barack Obama is not a compromiser. Barack Obama's never worked with Republicans. It's never happened, never going to happen, ever. Barack Obama is an extremist, left-wing, blind guide zealot. It's his way or the highway. You will bow before me. No. What? It was kneel. Kneel before me. Can I get this right? I said, kneel. Heck, I don't need to imitate it. I got it right here. I got it right here in the queue. This is why I start out my Barack Obama update theme with this audio clip. That's what Barack Obama said to the 114th Congress in the State of the Union address, as J.T. Young elaborated yesterday at the American Spectator website, spectator.org. Obama has effectively slammed the door on what is, God willing, his last 2 years in office. In last week's State of the One, 7, he explicitly, implicitly, and thoroughly rebuffed everyone who does not agree with him. In fact, he reiterated it today. He said he actually called for a spending surge. He used the term surge, folks. How can we afford this? Based on the rising economy, which is not happening outside his own head. And I digress. In contrast to what many have said, his dismissal went beyond being partisan to being personal. To understand what Obama did in his latest State of the One address, we must appreciate that these addresses are far more than speeches. They're events. Other than the party's presidential convention, acceptance speeches, and inaugural addresses, this is the nation's biggest political platform. Whether or not it should be is not the issue. Only the president gets this unique opportunity, and he gets it just once a year. We know for everyone else has to sit there and listen to him. No rebuttals, at least not until it's over. No interrupting him. No, it's not like the British House of Commons, where the two sides go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and cut each other off and catcalls and no, it's nothing like that. Everybody, well, they don't have to attend, but they think they do, and they come and they sit there and they got to listen to Barack Obama. Captive audience. Now, not at home, not the lowest rated State of the One in 15 years. Was the one last week. But for those physically in attendance, who don't have to be there either, but they think they do, then they got to sit there and listen. Or they think they do. Now, occasionally, the event is heightened further by the circumstances surrounding it. This was such a year. Republicans now fully control Congress, and Obama enters what is hopefully, prayerfully, his presidency's final stretch. Obama had the opportunity to formally set the tone for both the remainder of his presidency, however long it ends up lasting, and Washington's new political dynamic, which is really same as the old one. The Republicans had controlled, in theory, one house of Congress and had no power, and now they control both houses of Congress and have no power. Instead of setting it, Barack Obama lowered it, and with it, expectations for what Washington can accomplish over the next 2 years, which I suppose, in one sense, is cause for heaving a huge sigh of relief, but in the sense of resurrecting the old American Republic, not so much. A similarly heightened situation prevailed in 1996, if you might want to recall, when Bill Clinton, after a year of painful political fights with new House and Senate Republican majorities, used his State of the Union to state, remember this, the era of big government is over. It was aimed right at his adversaries. And, of course, he was lying, but it was Bill Clinton, so of course he was lying. And same thing with Barack Obama, except Bill Clinton was actually good at it. Barack Obama's terrible at it, but he's always cut a break because this is the affirmative action presidency, don't forget. If you remember that Clinton did not abandon a government approach, going on to say, but we cannot go back to the time when our citizens were left to fend for themselves. At an important juncture, Clinton reached out to Republicans with one hand while holding on to his own position with the other. He also held on to the White House, convincingly winning re-election later that year. Of course, he was running against a cadaver, so... I'm a dole man. Dun 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 dun. I'm a dole man. Bum 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 bum. Obama did just the opposite last week. There was no reach out here, only a slap down, or both middle fingers extended. Obama's State of the One was a pep rally for big government. Its era may have been over for Bill Clinton, but it was just beginning for Barack Hussein Obama. First, Obama extolled the economy and took credit for it. Well, took credit for the fictional growing economy that he depicted, not the actual economy that's still in a depression, the one that his policies are keeping firmly in place. Then he issued veto threats for any attempts to alter what he had wrought through legislation or his unilateral use of executive power. His illegal, unconstitutional use of executive power. Next, at every issue he raised for consideration, he had government solutions to throw at them, coupled with tax increases to pay for them. He sought neither common ground for discussion nor a consensus way to proceed. It's his way or the highway. In case there was any mistaking where he was going, he piled on ridicule to remove any doubt. When he approached energy policy, he skirted it, specifically the Keystone Pipeline, disdaining the vision of pipeline supporters by stating, "Let's set our sights higher than a single oil pipeline." Yeah, like no oil pipeline. When he raised Cuba, he dismissed past... Remember we talked yesterday about how Raul Castro is now demanding that we return Guantanamo Bay, the whole base, to the Castros before they'll normalize diplomatic relations with Barack Obama? Just as I predicted. Obama dismissed past policy, which he had existed for decades and across Republican and Democrat administrations, as long past its expiration date, and said his unilateral action had illegal action had removed a phony excuse for restrictions. When he mentioned climate policy, he condescendingly poured it on even thicker. "I've heard some folks try to dodge the evidence by saying that's not scientists, or that they're not scientists. Well, I'm not a scientist either, but you know what? I know a lot of really good scientists." A lot of corrupt political hacks. It was as though November 4th never happened, ladies and gentlemen. The comparison between Obama's approach and Clinton's is telling. Clinton faced smaller Republican majorities in both the House and the Senate than Obama does now, and had gone through a far more contentious preceding year. From his first term peak, Obama has lost an astounding 69 House and 14 Senate seats. Still, it was Clinton who took the more compromising approach, which also proved successful for him, and successful for the country, too. I mean, he basically let the Republicans run the country, and then he just came in and took the credit for it, for their accomplishments. Now, someone seeking cooperation does not predetermine conflict, but Obama did repeatedly, both in the topics he chose to raise and in the policies he chose to address them. His tone and message were clear. Congress is not a co-equal branch of government. They work for him, as far as he's concerned. Only by acceding to his priorities and his way of addressing them would Congress become, relevant? In other words, they got to be the same rubber stamps their Democrat predecessors were. First, they must raise themselves to his level. Forward! It's not surprising that Obama will find few takers on such terms, but then he doesn't really need takers, does he? He's got his pen and he's got his phone. And he's got all of Congress's Article 1, Section 1 legislative power in his back pocket. So as far as he was concerned, he was just the studio audience. That's all Congress was. Just a studio audience for the Obama show, And it will be even less surprising when he blames the resulting failures on others. But then that never is surprising, is it? It's not as though the country doesn't have its problems, despite the fact that these were glossed over in Obama's speech. Heck, their problems are all of his creation, deliberately, I might add. And it's not as though none of these problems offers some common ground between the parties. Yet Obama explored neither. In fact, he carpet-bombed them, to be honest with you. His speech was not about moving America forward. It was not about current politics, or as many have claimed, about 2016. Well, no, I think that was part of it. His speech was about Obama, as everything is about Obama, in his mind. As we look now to what, God willing, is the end of the Obamadency, although I still wouldn't count on it, his speech, as his speech last week hastened America to do, it becomes increasingly clear that this is what the Obamadency has always been about. Yeah, you nailed that one, JT, let me tell you. You may have seen it yesterday. The United States Senate, led by the Republicans, passed a bill approving construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. The vote was 62-36, with 9 Democrats joining the Republican majority. The Senate bill differs slightly from the House bill. Those differences will be ironed out in the conference committee. They'll send it to Barack Obama, and he'll veto it in about, 25 seconds. And, of course, the Republicans don't have the votes to overturn the veto. In fact, those 9 Democrats in the Senate that voted for it were just trying to be on record as having done so when they run for re-election in 2016, those that are. But this is what the 114th Congress has to do. Nothing's going to get done. Nothing's going to. You think things were gridlocked the last 4 years? It's only going to be worse. It's just the only difference is Barack Obama now has to do it himself, and that's the advantage that the Republicans have. Pass the Keystone XL, pass one popular conservative bill after another, send them down Pennsylvania Avenue, and make Barack Obama veto each and every one of them, make him president, no, and by extension his party, make them no, the party of no, turn that around on the Democrats, turn that around on Barack Obama, lay the groundwork for 2016, and then here comes the American Renewal Express, ladies and gentlemen. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, this is the job of the 114th Congress. I'm telling you, my Tea Party friends, do not expect the 114th Congress to get anything done except to lay the groundwork for taking back the White House so that the real work, God willing, if Barack Obama leaves when he's supposed to, the real work can begin 2 years from now, January 2017. Now, here's another thing. This is the last item on the stack. I got several links here. Loretta Lynch, the erstwhile U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York and an Al Sharpton protege, if you recall. Her confirmation hearings before the Senate Judiciary Committee began this week. I posted it began on Wednesday, and I had a number of things to say about it at politicalpistachio.com. Loretta Lynch, in her opening statement, defended Barack Obama's immigration proclamation. There's a surprise. Like there's any chance she wouldn't. Challenged by Republicans, Attorney General nominee Loretta Lynch on Wednesday defended Barack Obama's decision to shelter millions of immigrants, illegal aliens, translation, from deportation, though they live in the country illegally. But she said they have no right to citizenship under the law. Now, was that an attempt at slick Clinton-esque triangulation? If so, that would be more than a little surprising from an Obama appointee. They're typically directly and proudly in your face about their imperious lawlessness. Regardless, that caveat is functionally meaningless. About, illegal aliens have no right to citizenship under the law. It's meaningless. as they will receive all the benefits and privileges of citizenship regardless of whether it is ever formally accorded to them. And that includes voting in U.S. elections, don't forget. Now, Lynch said that under the administration's policy, the Commissariat of Homeland Security focuses its efforts on the removal of the most dangerous of the undocumented immigrants, the illegal aliens, among us. It seems to be a reasonable way to marshal limited resources to deal with the problem of illegal immigration, she said. Limited resources from a regime that has run up half of the current national debt single-handedly and is infamous for its numerous corrupt slush funds of taxpayer boodle. Funny how they don't seem to have any limited resources difficulties with any of their own policy priorities. Lynch made her remarks in the opening moments of a hearing into her appointment as the nation's first black female attorney general. It is the first confirmation proceeding since Republicans took control of the Senate this month, which raises the question of whether the Senate's new GOP majority will do what is so clearly their duty and defeat this woman's nomination hands down. And that is, of course, rhetorical. Or what part of the nation's first black female attorney general wasn't clear to you. In addition to which is that Miss Lynch has an additional powerful factor working in her favor. I don't know what it is. Lynch, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, is widely expected to win confirmation easily, if only because Republicans are so eager for Holder's tenure to end. He's been a lightning rod for conservative criticism, clashing with Republicans and becoming the first sitting attorney general held in contempt of Congress. Remember that? I can understand if you don't. It is kind of hard to remember. It's in the summer of 2012. You know, didn't make any difference in Barack Obama's reelection either. Settling into the witness chair for what promised to be a long day of questioning, Lynch promised a fresh relationship with law enforcement and Congress. I pledge to all of you and to the American people that I will fulfill my responsibilities with integrity and independence. Oh, that's rich. That's what she said in remarks prepared for the panel led by Republicans who say Attorney General Eric the Red Holder has been too willing to follow Barack Obama's political agenda. Well, I mean, just because he called himself Obama's wingman, it doesn't mean that, does it? Which she absolutely and snickeringly will not, of course. She'll be Eric the Red in a skirt. But Republicans, it seems, are incapable of fighting political wars preemptively. By the way, when she picks up right where Holder left off as Barack Obama's wingman, should I nickname that going into beast mode? Yeah, maybe I'll save that for after Marshawn Lynch's Seahawks departure. Long may it be deferred. Now, that was on Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday, there was a follow-up because, of course, and this is one of the advantages of having the gavel, you can ask the right questions. These are definitely questions you want to know the answers to. Yesterday, Miss Lynch, she's a mean one, Miss Lynch, declared that illegal aliens have the right to work in the United Soviet Socialist States of Obamamerikistan. Now remember when Reichsfuhrer designate Loretta Lynch said on Wednesday that illegal aliens had no right to citizenship? And remember how I said that, well, what difference does that make? They're still going to get all the benefits and all the goodies that citizenship is supposed to entail. Well, here we go. That caveat is I already said that. here's another see I told you so, folks. It didn't even take 24 hours. On Wednesday, Barack Obama's Attorney General nominee, Loretta Lynch, said that all, and by the way, Al Sharpton protege, said that all illegals should be allowed to work in the United States despite the fact that they are breaking our immigration laws. Let's see. Well, Senator Jeff Sessions, Republican of Alabama, Senate Immigration Subcommittee Chairman, Lynch began. She didn't say all of that. She said, well, Senator, I just wanted to make sure y'all knew who she was talking to, who she was addressing. I believe that, hey, she's an Obama appointee. She threw in an, I believe that, the right and the obligation to work is one that's shared by everyone in this country, regardless of how they came here, and certainly if someone is here, regardless of status, I would prefer that they be participating in the workforce than not participating in the workforce. That's a direct quote. Now, you know, all kidding aside, I don't make any claim to clairvoyance or superhuman prescience, ladies and gentlemen. I've just watched the deeds of these people for the past 6 years, and the party, and those of the party from which they sprang for my entire adult life. And it tells you all you need to know, and what all their fibulations and confabulations and fabrications and deceptions will obfuscate. Or you will know them by their fruits, as the true Messiah once said. It's Matthew chapter 7, by the way. So here we have the nominee to be the nation's chief law enforcement officer, the Al Sharpton protege who pledged to create a fresh start, serving the American people with integrity and independence. Sorry. After the sneering, smearing, corrupt, hyper-partisan reign of terror of Eric the Red Holder, telling the Senate Judiciary Committee and that same nation that she is going to pick up right where her predecessor left off. Senator Sessions elaborated just brilliantly. Quote, in addition to suspending enforcement for nearly all of the 12 million, it's probably more like twice that many, individuals unlawfully present in the United States, Barack Obama issued an executive decree on November 20th, 2014, extending work permits, Social Security, Medicare, tax credits, and government identification to 5 million illegal aliens and illegal visa violators. This would allow illegal aliens to take any job in America, regardless of chronic high unemployment for Americans, including a huge unemployment rate for African American workers. Peter Kirsanow, a member of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, explained that contra Eric Holder's breathtaking contention that amnesty was a civil right, yeah, he really said that, folks, that unlawful amnesty for illegal aliens violated the rights of U.S. citizens to the full protection of their laws, including those laws passed by Congress to protect their jobs and wages from illegal competition. Barack Obama's executive edict, his term, not mine, Senator Sessions' term, an edict he said previously only an emperor would deign to issue, voids Americans' legal protections in law. You might say it nullifies them, supplanting them with a new executive policy that Congress and voters have already repeatedly rejected. A policy which forces unemployed Americans to compete against a large and growing illegal workforce. End of quote. So I guess the question really is, what is law? Is it that which is enacted via the constitutional process the Founding Fathers bequeathed us? Or is it whatever emerges from Barack Obama's royal scepter? It seems abundantly clear on which side Loretta Lynch comes down, which is why the GOP Senate majority has a well-nigh sacred duty to send this woman back to the Eastern District of New York where she belongs. I don't know what she does there, bring Al Sharpton his coffee, I have no idea. And here's an exit question for you. I can't wait until the questioning winds its way around to civil rights. Can you? And here are the editors of National Review Online engaging in Jasmius Echo syndrome, ladies and gentlemen. In November, just days after the American electorate gave Republicans strong majorities in both chambers of Congress, Barack Obama, flipped off several million voters by issuing the Immigration Proclamation. You know what I'm talking about. That lawless action was naturally supported by Reichsfuhrer Erich the Red Holder, whose primary contribution as head of the Commissariat of Injustice, Revenge, and Cover-Up for 6 years has been to grant specious legal imprimatur to the dictator's various usurpations of legislative power. Loretta Lynch, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, nominated to be Erich the Red's replacement, has proven herself equally unfit for the office. That some Senate Republicans seem prepared to swiftly confirm her to office is an abrogation of their November mandate and, even more important, their constitutional duty. In Senate confirmation hearings held this week, Lynch has evaded questions from Louisiana Senator David Vitter about whether the amnesty order will actually be carried out on a case-by-case basis, as even the administration's own lawyers say is required by law, and from Utah Senator Mike Lee and Texas Senator Ted Cruz about whether a future president could, under Barack Obama's rationale of prosecutorial discretion, decline to enforce tax or labor or environmental laws. But among the things she has stated unequivocally is her belief that Barack Obama's executive order is legal and constitutional. She even went further, telling Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions that the right and the obligation to work is one that's shared by everyone in this country, regardless of how they came here. Such an assertion is both ahistorical and constitutionally unsupportable. But it is Barack Obama's own alarming view and simply confirms that Lynch, like Erich the Red, would lend the Injustice, Revenge, and Cover-Up Commissariat's endorsement to Barack Obama's lawlessness. And still, several Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee seem happy to send her through to a full Senate vote, where she will be readily confirmed. Arizona Senator Jeff Flake told BuzzFeed on Wednesday that the president should always get his people unless there is something disqualifying about them. And there's nothing disqualifying about her except that she's lawless and racist and she's Erich the Red in a skirt, frankly. I mean, if the execution of a lawless act of executive overreach by the top law enforcement official in the country is not disqualifying, what is? Senate Republicans are under no obligation to call a vote on Lynch's nomination. That is a power exercised at the discretion of the majority leader. The Senate Democrats were happy to postpone indefinitely votes on Republican nominees during the Bush administration. What some seem to have forgotten is that at issue is Barack Obama's What some seem to have forgotten is that at issue in Barack Obama's executive order is not simply America's immigration policy. The dictator's action in November, coming on top of his unilateral de facto implementation of the DREAM Act in the summer of 2012, rends the principle of separation of powers that is part of the warp and weft of America's constitutional fabric. Republicans, indeed all of Congress, should exercise their constitutional prerogative to check and block the power of a president who has demonstrated his contempt for the very concept of checks and balances. The GOP will suffer mercilessly. They will suffer merciless accusations of racism and sexism for doing so, but unflattering New York Times headlines are a small price to pay for upholding constitutional order, and besides which I seem to recall that they were elected by a majority of the voters on November 4th, who in exit polls indicated they opposed the immigration proclamation that came 2 weeks later by a 3-1 and sometimes 4-1 margin. Like I say, they will never have better, more favorable ground upon which to have a showdown with Barack Hussein Obama. And like I say, they got to fight. They got to start fighting political conflicts preemptively. Yeah, they can't wait to be rid of Eric the Red Holder. What? No kidding. I share that sentiment. Why do you want to just wade through his replacement who is no better than he is? The last thing that a new majority needs to do is to make its voters say, what did we elect these people for? You know? Successful resistance to Lynch's nomination would be a clear rebuke to Barack Obama. And I hasten to add, would piss him off. Remember the Benjamin Netanyahu invite? Bypassing the White House, just going straight to the Israelis and inviting Prime Minister Netanyahu to address Congress on March the 3rd. What did that do? It pissed Barack Obama off. It poked at his vanity. That's how you beat Barack Obama. Poke at his vanity. Just reject her nomination. Everybody, don't even hold a vote on it. Just put her in limbo. Put her on ice. That will get his attention. While it would likely leave Eric Holder or an acting attorney general in office, since Obama is unlikely to nominate any candidate who would not support his executive lawlessness, Republicans would at least firmly demonstrate that they are unwilling to participate in the neutering of their own constitutional powers. But if the Senate votes to confirm Loretta Lynch in what would be the chamber's most important vote related to Barack Obama's executive amnesty since its proclamation, what else ought conservatives to think than that it portends many white flags to come, ladies and gentlemen? That's not Doug Gibbs saying it. That's not me saying it. That's not a Tea Partier saying it. That's the editors of National Review Online, who many consider to be establishment. See, Republicans are going to be facing this more and more. The excuse they had before the last 4 years is that, well, we only have the House. And it was a good point. You can't turn the country around from just the House of Representatives. Well, now they got the House and the Senate. Now they have much less of an excuse. And it's time to start producing, guys and gals. Well, we are here at the end of the show, end of the week. The weekend is coming, and of course, Saturday afternoon extravaganza, 19 hours and 2 minutes from now. And just over a day after that, Super Bowl 49, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you on Monday for the Seahawks victory celebration. Have a great weekend. We'll see you later.